Hello there everybody, this is Lady Silver Vixen. I know I haven't done a video in a while, so I was talking to a friend of mine today, and she got kind of confused about some of the terminology that is commonly used in Wicca. Well, I thought perhaps not only to clear up a few things to her, but to a lot of the beginners, I'd go ahead and I'd do a video on some of the terms. I'm going to be picking out and reading specific terms. To get started, I'll talk about Akasha. It's the definition for that is the spiritual ether, the omnipresent fifth occult element which embraces the other four, which are earth, air, fire, and water, and from which they stem. This is the realm of pattern or causality, from which the realm, the normal thought of five senses manifest from. Some define it as the other of the two worlds that the witch or magician walks between. The athame, which is one of the most common terms, is a black-handled, double-edged dagger, principally used to cast and dissolve the circle, for which purposes it is interchangeable with the magic sword, a tool of the element of fire, in several of the different traditions. Beltane is one of the many festivals that most Wiccans celebrate. It's also known as the May Eve festival. One of the ancient Celtic fire festivals. On this night, the cattle were driven between two bonfires to protect them from disease. Couples wishing for fertility would jump the fires on Beltane night. Also, the traditional Sabbath, where the rule of the wheel of the year is returned to the goddess. This festival also marks the transition point of the threefold goddess energies from those of maiden to mother. The biggest thing that I get questions about is, what is a Book of Shadows? Traditionally, it's a hand-copied book of rituals, recipes, training techniques, guidelines, and other materials that are deemed important to a witch or a coven. Each tradition has its own standard version of the book, and each witch's book will be different as he or she adds to it with time from many different sources. Only another witch can see your Book of Shadows. Also, traditionally, it may never leave your hands or possession until death, and in which case it should be destroyed. Even in some traditions, it'll be returned to the coven to be disposed of. The next thing is the burning times, which is also another commonly used term. It is a term used by some witches and pretty much every witch that I've ever met. For the period of persecution in the Middle Ages and later. It is in fact a misnomer in some places, as witches were only burdened in Scotland and on the continent of Europe. In England and the US they were hanged. So there's a big misconception about England and the US where they burned witches. Candlemas is the festival that's held on February 1st. It's one of the four Celtic fire festivals. It commemorates the changing of the goddess from the crone to the maiden. It celebrates the first signs of spring, also called Imalc, the old Celtic name for it. This is the seasonal change where the first signs of spring and the return of the sun are noted, i.e. the first sprouting of leaves, the sprouting of flowers, and such. In other words, it is the festival commemorating the successful passing of winter and the beginning of the agricultural year. This festival also marks the transition point of the threefold goddess energies from those of crone to maiden. Another big one is the cardinal points, which are north, south, east, and west. Depending on the tradition will depend on which candles that you use for the 4 points. Some people don't even use candles, but in general the circle is drawn to connect the 4 points. A chalice is one of the tools of the witch, placed on the altar to represent the element of water. It's also a representation of the mother goddess. The charge of the goddess is something else that you'll probably hear. The traditional words of the goddess to her followers or hidden children, normally declaimed by the high priestess of every coven or every circle. A circle is the area in which the magical worship and spells takes place in in most traditions. It can also be used to designate a particular group of witches or pagans, such as the Silver Acorn Circle. The Cone of Power is something else that you'll hear commonly too. The power is raised in the circle by the witches assembled and sent out into the world to work magic. It's usually visualized as being retained and built up in the form of a cone prior to release. Hence the reason for the witch's hat, why it has a point on it. It's a representation of the Cone of Power. A coven, I've heard people call it coven. I've always pronounced it coven. Everybody that I've ever met has pronounced it coven, so you can usually pick out where some people are from, depending on, yeah. Anyway, a coven is an organized group of witches, usually led by a high priestess and or a high priest, who meet regularly for worship and fellowship. The traditional membership is 13, but in fact most covens numbers considerably less. 3 is the minimum in certain traditions, such as the Georgian. In Middle English, coven, spelled C-O-V-I-N, a group of confederates. In Old English, covine is a band or group with a single purpose. And basically what it's trying to get at here, from Latin, come, which means together, and then venire is to come or move. So basically it's a bunch of people coming together. A coven stead is a regular meeting place for a coven, usually the home of the high priestess or high priest. A koan, which you usually see in writings, not really hear too much out of pagan mouths, is the term that some people have dubbed as non-witches. Formerly used in a very derogatory manner, and is still used in Mosaic ritual to indicate the non-initiate and or pretender to the real craft. Not often used today among most witches, but you will find it in writings. Deosil or desoil is clockwise or sunwise traditional direction for working and building magic. Drawing down the moon is a ritual invocation of the spirit of the goddess into the body of the high priestess or the high priest, which it's really not so common in high priest. Divination is where we're going to stop at here. Divination is the magical method of exploration or inquiry into a situation via such methods as tarot cards, rune stones, I Ching, and so on and so forth. There will be a couple more videos on this stuff because I think it's very important that beginners understand where not only are they coming from, but the terms and what they mean. So there will be other videos. I will be picking back up again in a couple of days. Unfortunately, at the moment, I'm in a transition period. I have recently graduated, and I am now a fully certified registered nurse, or not registered nurse, excuse me, but a certified nursing aide. I'm currently trying to get enrolled to get my registered nursing degree. So everybody keep your fingers crossed, light a candle for me, and hope that I can find some really good work. And I will hopefully be seeing some of you soon in West Virginia, a couple of my friends that I know. And for the rest of you, you all have a very blessed day, and I hope to talk to you all soon.